Okay, everybody who comes in gets a ticket. First of all, thank you for taking your first step on the Hot Springs Trail just by being here, supporting this cause, giving me some applause, and a round of applause for yourself. Now, I'm not trying to turn this hot spring into another party spot, but the library's closed and we can make as much noise as we want here. So with that being said, I want to know, who's ready to go on an epic hike? Who wants to climb up a mountain? Who wants to swim in a pristine lake? Who's going to give up because of a blister? Who wants to soak in a wild hot spring? Well, I can sum up the Hot Springs Trail for you in one word. What more needs to be said, right? Can anyone guess what my 3 favorite words are? No guesses? Hot Springs Trail. Breakfast all day. Who here is familiar with the Pacific Crest Trail? Who here is thru-hiked the Pacific Crest Trail? I was introduced to the world of long-distance hiking by the PCT in 2006. I was already an avid hiker before setting out from Mexico, and for me, a thru-hike of the PCT was going to be like a connecting of the dots of different places that I had already been to over the years. There was one major difference, though, traveling the PCT versus any other weekend backpacking trip that I had ever done before. And it actually took me a couple hundred miles to realize what that was. And that was, I was no longer hiking alone, but with a community now. Hikers on the PCT, and soon to be the HST, are all following the same designated corridor. We all stay on the same path, the same trail. Most of us follow a creed of purity when it comes to sticking to the trail. But some of us are easily distracted and wind up leaving it, unable to avoid other temptations. Section hikers. I myself was one of them that year. Arriving to Oregon, I got sucked into the Ashland vortex and my girlfriend's bed. But 2 years later, in 2008, I returned to the PCT and successfully thru-hiked from Mexico to Canada in 5 months. Zoner Unchained. All right, let's get to it. Thru-soaking. Who's heard of the idea of thru-soaking before tonight? Judging by the title of my event, who wants to be a thru-soaker after tonight? All right. The Hot Springs Trail extends from Santa Barbara to Canada and has been broken down into 4 parts, each of which is its own epic adventure with its own guidebook. This trail has been designed to offer both challenge and reward and is a culmination of work that first began for me in 2009. On this day, April 24th of 2009, I was on day 16 of a 40-day walk across Utah on the Hayduke Trail. 3 days earlier, I was hiking cross country when it began snowing heavily. I made my way across a wide plateau, bearing down, then found my entry notch and began descending off of the rim and into Young's Canyon. But before long, I arrived to a massive pour-off, and here the trail seemed to end. Who's heard of the Hayduke Trail? Who knows why gluten-free people can't thru-hike the Hayduke Trail? Because they can't eat their Wheaties. It's classic. Bad joke, but look at this great philosophy. Even if you fail, you'll be stronger than anyone who never tried. Trust me, you don't want to fail 30 miles from the nearest road. The Hayduke Trail is tough, and it was more bad news getting back to what I was saying. So I couldn't find a way around this pour-off, but I knew that since there was a line in my Hayduke Trail guidebook, that there must be a way. Snow was falling, and it had accumulated past my shoe tops by now. Just then, along the cliff band, I noticed a small recess cave and I hustled over to it, then took shelter. Sitting there in the cave, without friends, without warmth, without a smoothie, I had but one last thought in my mind. Damn, I wish there was a hot springs here. Who's been there before? On the Hayduke Trail, I learned that you don't always need a trail, but you do always need your compass. The Hot Springs Trail has some of these trailless sections too, but they're all located on natural land features, which are all very much like trails. These are either along ridgetops or in the crux of drainages. This picture here is in Nevada. It's known as the Dragon's Tail. And it looks like I'm looking up, but I'm actually looking down. And this is literally about 3,000 to 4,000 feet lower than where I'm at right now. It's kind of an interesting image. Now, if you're comfortable traveling by using map and compass alone, as I prefer to do, you could get away with just using the official map set. These are National Geographic quality maps, and they have been heavily annotated as if there was going to be no written data with them. Vice versa, the written supportive data that's in the official guidebook has been done so in a way as if there weren't going to be any maps accompanying them. So between the two, you should have no issue with navigation, and reports so far on the trail are excellent. The Hot Springs Trail is divided up into hundreds of data points. These range from 0.1 to 10 miles in length. To the left of each data point is a running mileage counter. This begins from mile 0 and starts over at each of the 4 points. Additionally, all water sources in the data text have been emboldened, which makes it really easy to see where the next water is. The Hot Springs Trail has both on-trail and off-trail resupply stops. These are included in the map set. Resupply options vary from 5 backcountry lodges, which I've secured the okay for you guys to mail packages to, and they're in the books, to small town post offices, roadside grocery stores, and friendly fishing resorts. This is McNally's on the Kern River. This guy was ready to spray me with his caulk gun. I told him what I was up to. He said, let's seal the deal right now. I said, man, I don't even know how to use the computer. I got to figure this out. The PCT walks directly through 9 resupply towns and requires hitching or short spur trails to access the other 18. But unlike on the PCT, a dozen of the resupply stops on the Hot Springs Trail have established farmers markets. Yeah, who likes farmers markets? Eating good on this trail. Has anyone here never been to a farmer's market? They don't want to admit it? Because you were going to get the salt. Why? Because you got your vegetables and you got to put the salt on the vegetables. So we don't want to forget that. When I returned from the Hayduke Trail in 2009, I almost immediately set off to hike across Colorado, following the Colorado Trail. Who's familiar with the Colorado Trail? Who's thru-hiked the Colorado Trail? Let's get out more. During this hike, I teamed up with a thru-hiker who I had originally met in 2008 on the PCT. His name was Wassa. Does anybody know Wassa? Yeah, you guys know Wassa? Just so you know, I love bagging peaks, and the Hot Springs Trail has a ton of them on it. But Wassa's goal that year was to connect all 52 of Colorado's 14ers as a single thru-hike. Wow. Don't worry, the Hot Springs Trail is not that advanced. The following year, in 2010, I revisited the Hayduke Trail when I completed my thru-hike across Arizona following the Arizona Trail. Who here is familiar with the Arizona Trail? Who here thinks it should be called the Arizona Trail? Sucker punch. When I hiked the AZT, it was relatively new, and there wasn't a lot of information online about it. And in fact, I have the 18th registered completion trail journal for it. And even today, there are only 75 journals to be found if you're trying to plan for it. I figured that the AZT would primarily be a hot desert journey, which at times it was. However, almost half of my days on it were spent in the snow, as you can see here. By the time I was done hiking the Arizona Trail, I was no longer scared by the words 20-mile waterless. In fact, by then, 20-mile waterless meant going 20 miles without sweating or carrying water. Love it. That being said, you could also cache or do a slower way or skip that part. You could hitch around it. I mean, if you're not a purist, you can move around on the Hot Springs Trail just to the good spots if you want. So what's the number one ingredient to stay hydrated? Believe it or not, salt. Salt holds the water in. Too much salt and you can become bloated. Not enough and you could die. Sea salt is, like I said earlier, the original electrolyte, and it's a must-have in the resupply box. I like to make a recovery mix with it with spirulina, beet powder, cacao powder, and vanilla powder. Who remembers what my 3 favorite words are? All right. Free bandana. Who said that first? That was back there. Woo! I began to research my next adventure after the Arizona Trail, which was going to be the Idaho Centennial Trail. Who here is familiar with the Idaho Centennial Trail?
Well, as if it were a key to a gate or a doorway into another dimension. It opened something when I looked at it. It gave me a profound insight that would ultimately change the direction and focus of my life to come. Looking at this map, can anyone guess what my realization was? Does anyone notice anything missing here? Besides the inverted yoga girl. Come on, guys. You got a single track mind. He's got it. Bam. No trail in Nevada. But there is a trail now, single track mind trail, and that helps you keep your mind pure, help you stay true to the through, so you don't get vortexed, don't turn to a section hiker. What's the 2 most common topics among hikers? It's not gear and where to go. It's food and sex. Well, yeah, what like this guy, he got it. He gets a bandana. Yeah, what I noticed was that every state in the western U.S. has a trail going across it except for Nevada. So, of course, I had to hike it, right? Now it was there. Every time I looked at the map, I saw it. But at the same time, I didn't see it because it was a big hole. I'm a whole food hiker, so we got this. So I now have my next adventure ahead of me, not the ICT, but the NVT. This was going to be my very own route. How exciting. The following year, I hiked across Nevada. Now, up until that time, I had purely been on a joyride, on a selfish vacation going to wherever I chose. I was learning so much on the trail, but I was only sharing it with myself. Due to the incredible experiences that I had while I was out hiking across Nevada, I became compelled to publish this route as a book. And with that idea, the Nevada Trail official guidebook was conceived. Not in the backseat of a Jeep, on the summit of a mountain. The Nevada Trail begins on the highest point in all of Nevada, on Boundary Peak. This remote summit happens to be conveniently placed on the very border of California as well, at the northern end of the Inyo Range, near Mono Lake in the town of Bishop. Seen here just behind and to the left of me is the highest point on the entire Hot Springs Trail, Montgomery Peak, 13,447 feet. Does anyone know what Nevada has more of than any other state? All right, free sticker there. She's getting some goods. Woo. Ah! Bingo, mountain ranges. The Nevada Trail travels on top of some of these mountain ranges, at times going cross-country. The wildlife and microclimate-strewn trail also visits 7 superb desert hot springs and passes directly through several historic resupply towns before reaching its northern terminus at the Idaho Centennial Trail. I returned home inspired from this Nevada trip and excited to start working on my first book. But as I had mentioned earlier, can happen to hikers, I got distracted and veered off track by another thru hiker who I first met on the PCT in 2008 as well. His name is Snacks. Anybody know this guy? Phew. Well, we all have a friend like him. So Snacks was just about to go hike the High Sierra on the John Muir Trail, and he invited me to join him. And I have to admit, it was a tough choice. The thought of me and Snacks alone in the wilderness with our tiny food bag. I mean, what if he tries to eat me? And we have trail names for a reason, man. Why is this guy named Snacks? This stuff is in my heart. You know, I feel like when I did the PCT, I bought a guidebook, I got a bandana, you know, I had a sticker that stoked me out and I put it on my bear can and everything like that. And it solidified it, because what it does is it brings everybody together. So we're not just like in Yosemite hiking, come from all these different places. Like, no, you're on the trail, like you're on the PCT, like you have a culture, like that cuts through everything. It's like, no, I'm on the PCT. And the Hot Springs Trail is like that. You know, like if people are on the Hot Springs Trail, they're in the hot springs. They're probably into like good food. You know, they probably got a pretty good vibe. They're not going to be the people who are going to be complaining. You know what I mean? If they're complaining, they might be on, I don't know, some other trail. They might not even make it. But if you got that good mind state, you understand like a little challenge, you know, you like to really kick back. You know, some days it's like sweat and grit and you're trying to, you know, tooth and nail up some summit. And then other days it's like, God, I don't want to leave here. This is like amazing. You know, this is the best hot spring in the world. I'm never going to make it to Canada. So now we surely have some JMT alumni in the house. Who here is thru-hike the JMT? Some hands, huh? Oh yeah, awesome. You guys these trails are amazing. Long distance hiking is a culture. It's a good way to travel. It's really affordable. I think it's amazing. So for this hike, Snacks and I took an alternate approach, and we entered the High Sierra in the south near Lone Pine. We got on the PCT at Trail Pass and then summited Mount Whitney from the western interior side and spent the night on the very summit. In the morning, it was beautiful. Charged by the sun, we headed north, then proceeded to thru-hike the JMT in just 9 days. Most people take 3 weeks. But I had a book to write. Plus, I didn't want to risk running out of food with Snacks hot on my heels. In the long-distance hiking world, it's eat or be eaten. On day 4, Snacks and I walked into the Muir Trail Ranch to visit Blaney Hot Springs. During my soak that night, I conspired a route across the High Sierra which would connect Blaney with several other wild hot springs that I knew of. I also remembered that there was a few other amazing hot springs that are located just outside of Mammoth Lakes, which is a resupply town of the JMT, and that on the other side of those springs was Boundary Peak and Mile Zero of the Nevada Trail. This second idea would eventually become known as the High Sierra Hot Springs Trail, and during September of 2013, I thru-hiked its entire 253-mile length in just 14 days. This part of the Hot Springs Trail is highly recommended for every adventurer. Among its many great feats is the fact that it visits the largest dome in all of the Sierras, Tehipite Dome, far from any road and deep in Kings Canyon National Park. And on this day, it's got a rainbow coming off of it. That's not a Photoshop. I don't know how to use Photoshop. After completing the High Sierra Hot Springs Trail, I now had my own route spanning from the High Sierra all the way to Idaho. But I procrastinated once again and avoided spending time on my computer authoring the Nevada Trail and instead focused on creating a 448-mile trail that begins right here in Lithia Park and goes over the 7 highest peaks in the 7 local wilderness areas. This trail is called the 7 Summits of the Siskiyou Trail, and I promise that I'll get back to this adventure later at a future presentation. For now, though, I started preparing to hike across Idaho. Shortly into my research, though, I learned something interesting about Idaho. Does anyone know what Idaho has more of than any other U.S. state? Bingo, potatoes. Well, it's kind of a little yam right there. It was like giving birth with that realization the Hot Springs Trail was born. It was like giving birth. Guys love to say that, don't we? We have no idea. Guys love to talk about stuff that they don't know anything about. That's how science was invented. Well, I'm not afraid to admit that I lost my newborn glow quickly when I noticed that the Idaho Centennial Trail misses almost all of the state's hot springs. Heartbreaking. By the time I had figured out how I was going to visit all of them, I pretty much had a new route laid out. As a token to the Idaho Centennial Trail, I decided to call my version the Idaho Soaktennial Trail. It's 1,100 miles in length and visits 63 on-trail hot spring areas. Now that's soaks up times 100. In 2014, I successfully thru-soaked the Idaho Soaktennial Trail in just 53 days. Now the difference between thru-soaking and thru-hiking, do I need to explain that? This journey, along with all of my journeys, are documented in the Adventure Catalogue. This unique book contains stories, tips, insights, food lists, and revealing images for how I walked across every state in the western U.S. Sans the Continental Divide Trail. That's going to be the next adventure after I finish hiking the Hot Springs Trail. So with the Nevada, High Sierra, and Idaho trails now complete, I set off in the fall of 2014 to formulate the Coast Connect Trail, which visits some of my favorite hot springs on the entire trail, actually. This trail begins in Santa Barbara, from the very end of Stearns Wharf, a bustling pier that jets out into the ocean. Not only is Santa Barbara a beautiful place to visit, but from mile zero, it's only 0.3 miles to the train station and the Santa Barbara Tourist Hostel, and only 6.8 miles to the first hot spring area. Montecito, Santa Barbara. Further into the Coast Connect Trail, I revisited the PCT. The Hot Springs Trail joins the PCT for 100 miles in order to get across the vast Mojave Desert. Here, a famous and inviting trail angel has taken over a small settlement and adequately named it Hikertown. With the HST on the scene, the PCT is no longer the lone renegade of the West Coast, but is now a bigger brother to a more therapeutic baby sister. And the PCT better watch out too, because the HST is hot. Who'd like to see that on a t-shirt? Yeah, we got that coming. Completing the Coast Connect Trail meant that I had now established a solid route from Santa Barbara all the way to Canada. However, my mission on the Hot Springs Trail was far from over. In fact, I was back at the beginning of it, literally, mile zero. I'm excited to announce today that I've finished designing, pioneering, and authoring the Hot Springs Trail, but must also confess that there's still one thing left to do, and that's thru-hike it, purist style, FKT. As I prepare to set off for this 2,370-mile hike on May 1st, I know that I'll have to face challenges and hardships along the way, uncomfortable situations, and less than favorable weather. But I also know that I'll be spending my time in nature, getting to know myself, meeting new people who are also on the path to health and wellness, and witnessing incredible moments that are both fleeting and precious. This goal of mine, hiking and creating the next National Scenic Trail, may seem impossible, but with your support, both here today at this event and in the future online, I feel confident that I can make it happen. So who's with me? From Santa Barbara to Canada. Who's bringing their Wheaties? Chia. No, really, chia. Chia seeds. Chia seeds are the original long-distance hiking food. Why National Scenic Trail? Why National Scenic Trail? Why not just Hot Springs Trail? Why Hot Springs National Scenic Trail? Have you been on any of the other National Scenic Trails? You would probably realize that there's a reason why some of them aren't hiked by that many people, because they're not themed. They're not centered around a concept. They're basically just walk across the state from south to north. But my trail was
like I learned how to hike the PCT. The PCT for me wasn't a trail from Mexico to Canada. It was connecting the dots. It was revisiting Crater Lake and Yosemite and all these places. And in that way, it wasn't this huge thing, but it was a staircase. And the Hot Springs Trail, the reason that this is broken down into the 4 books and this stuff is the same kind of way. And if you believe it or not, only 3% of people who use the PCT try to actually hike from Mexico to Canada. Most of the people are just out for the weekend. They just want to go to the good spots. And in the guidebooks, it tells you basically how to do that. You could just avoid, it's only for the purists, the people who want to have that 4 months walking meditation. Like what you can do on these trails and why I hike the other long distance trails is because I can set my boxes up. I've got my backpack and I can literally just go for 2 or 3 months just in that meditation, just in the bliss, just traveling, meeting people. It's an affordable way to travel when you don't have, when you're just in the woods, there's nothing to buy. But it also stimulates your artistic creativity, and I think that that's where this really came out. You know, all the time I spent hiking the long distance trails and then designing this, which was originally just for me. I just wanted to hike to hot springs. None of the trails had enough hot springs. None of them had enough summits. None of them went to the natural food store. And so that was my goal. And like I said, when I had the hike, it was so amazing that we just had to get it out there because I had that realization that was how I wound up out there, was because somebody took the time to put the Arizona Trail together, to put the Colorado Trail together. How many people work for the PCTA? They have like 50 employees. And then there's all the trail workers and it's an economy. And so creating the trail is really dynamic. There's an adventure, there's a culture, and there's an economy. And so for me, I'm on all these different kind of levels. But for you guys, you just got to get out there and hike. Sweat, have fun, enjoy the view. There's definitely some new places that you'll find. And in fact, there's 7 hot springs on the Hot Springs Trail that are not in any other hot spring guidebook. I, in fact, had to name them. They're the deep wilderness ones. I didn't name them Zoner Hot Springs. I definitely thought about it, though. So with that, I think we got to get to this raffle. Thanks. What do you guys think? Hot Springs Trail? 2,370 miles. I mean, you guys think it's hard just to hike the PCT. Imagine that there was no PCT, and you had to design it, come up with it, and then maybe you hiked it, and it was so awesome you just wanted to share it to your friends. You know, so then you had to map it and figure it out and write down where you sent boxes and what you did and all this kind of stuff. But then imagine it was really like the most awesome journey that you could ever imagine, and you've already done all these other journeys, and you're comparing them, and you're thinking, if I didn't know that this was my trail and I did this hike, and the experience that I had when I was out there was far superior than all these other trails because it has all these elements that I learned from the other trail, the summits, the cross country, the community. The community will come with the definition of the Hot Springs Trail as all these hot springs, like you're saying in Oregon and all these places, but the hot springs that are defined on the Hot Springs Trail will attract a community of people. And that happens, that's what a national scenic trail is about. It's a treasure, it's something that brings people together and creates a culture, creates economy. And you know, at the end of the day, I'm just a hiker. But in order to get this trail to do its thing, I'm now a presenter, a website designer, author, you know, graphic artist, all these different things. And that's the fun part. That's the part that doesn't happen on the trail, because there's not a lot to do on the trail, except your inversions, a little snacking, jump in the hot spring. I'm definitely not checking my email. I don't even have this is my phone. You guys probably don't even remember how to use one of these. Like fingers. Why are you using your hands? So you guys ready to do this raffle? Sure. You got a ticket when you came in, right?
I didn't.
Okay, everybody who comes in gets a ticket for sure. Yeah, and you know, it's support. You guys are awesome. I love you. 10. Yep. Maybe Link can help me out. He's got all the tickets.
Can you serve these guys up, Lint, and I can answer some questions? Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. This book is amazing. It includes a lot of data that's not in the guidebooks, the official guidebooks. This really just goes into the springs. There's a version that's in full color, a version that's in black and white. It contains the facts, GPS, elevation, temperature, the location point on the trail, how it stands, what the camping situation is. But it also gives you a chance to visit this pool, Pine Flat. Isn't that beautiful? Smooth. Who likes smoothies? Who chews their smoothies? Chewing and overall tasting your food as you eat it increases the enzyme production and metabolism and decreases post-meal fatigue and also gas. All right, let's keep going. So let's get some numbers out. Everybody got their tickets in their hands? Ready to do this? Let's just start from the top. Hopefully we got a men's version. This is from Amazing Grass. These guys, Amazing Grass is awesome. They've been helping me out on my website, and they're stoked on the mission. And if you guys can't tell, like, part of what I do is about hiking, but the other part is about nutrition and about food and really, like, you know, helping people be able to tap into their adventure. Because I truly believe that whether you want to hike from Mexico to Canada or you want to create a business that has employees, you know, kind of a thing, like a real entrepreneur kind of thing, you have to go through the same process, breaking things down, overcoming obstacles, seeing through, figuring out who's with you, who's against you, all these kind of different things. And so it's a learning process for me because eventually, even though I do these hiking trails, eventually, you know, I want to just be working with the food, helping you guys hike and tap into the wellness, because two kinds of people that you meet on the trail is adventurers who are already in shape, they're good to go. Then there's the people, most of the people that I meet on trail wind up there because they were either injured or they had a, like I was, or they had a trauma, or they have some kind of situation, the job, and they just crashed out. And only a few percent, again, only like 3% of the people out there are sports performance athletes. You know, like I said, man, it's the Nesquik bunny. That's who you're going to run into on the PCT. All right, let's get into some good stuff right here. We need a whole nother hour just to do the raffle. So, who's ready to soak? We got some gift certificates to the well springs. Oh yeah, somebody's going to be happy. Somebody's going to be happy that their friend won this, and hopefully they'll take them to the hot springs. 951-567. Yourself and 4 friends, enjoy. Make sure you thank them, let them know you had a good time, you ready to get your soak on. All right, how about this? Somebody's, you know you guys want to hike. You want the whole package. Right here, you want to put a sticker on your car, soften this bandana up, give it a wash, throw that around your neck, hit mile 0, get out on the trail. Tell your friends. 951-586. We got some legs in here to match these numbers. Boom. Oh! He's got legs. He's ready to do that. He's a thru-soaker. He's ready to just hop on his motorcycle and just go wherever the easy good ones are. And he's like, I'm not trying to walk from. Trying to walk. All right, it is about to get real good right now because we got. This is the $100 gift certificate from Shopping Cart. Big up. They believe in the Hot Springs Trail. Those guys are down. I told them what I was doing. I said, hey, I really want to stoke these people out. I said, can you give me a book? And they said, well, how about $100? I said, that's going to stoke somebody out. So Shopping Cart, they are down with the Hot Springs Trail. All right, 951-566. Really? See, that's why you got to buy the good strip. Awesome. Wow. I think that's it. Looking around. Clock. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. Woo. If
if you learned anything, it's don't have an itinerary. You know? Because you think, oh yeah, 20 miles a day, no problem. But throughout the day, there's so many distractions, so much cool stuff to do that you might only make it 5 miles, and that's okay. You don't have to do the Hot Springs Trail in 1 year. This thing is going to be around. We want to make it a National Scenic Trail. Thanks for your support. Blessings. Thanks for putting up with my antics.